Afro Comic Con 2021. Rewrite the future with us.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mirage Trams. I'll be the moderator tonight. Thank you so much for joining this amazing panel. And I'd like to also thank Afro Comic Con for putting this all together and producing this for us. This panel is titled Hollywood in the Aftermath of the Pandemic and BLM Protest. Where are you now? And to get us started, I'd like to just introduce the members of the panel. First, we're going to start with Brick Jackson. Brick, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. As Mirage says, I am Brick Jackson. I'm an actor and writer out here in Los Angeles, California, in case you were confused at what Los Angeles I was referring to. I don't know how much of it. It's weird to kind of give a bio / resume, but been acting for quite some time now. I've been on several TV shows and a couple movies over the years, some things that are coming out. I'm also improv and sketch comedian. Been doing that for quite some time as well. I really enjoy acting, really enjoy everything, and I'm looking forward to the panel. But thanks for having me.
It's great. Yeah, Brick, you're pretty humble, really, because it's a lot longer than that. I know you, but let's just keep moving on. Let's move on. Our next guest is Rico Ross. Rico, like Puerto Rico, Ross, like the Diana, as I'm told.
Rico, what's up, girl? It's good seeing you, and I gotta say, you looking fly as ever. And I'm jealous of your stack of your bookcase of books behind you, showing off your intellect there. I see you, girl. My name is Rico Ross. I'm an actor producer, and you probably know me from movies like Aliens, Mission Impossible, Death Wish. I have in a TV series now, recurring in P Valley, and some people still remember me from being the guy that Whitney Houston was saving her love for and saving all my love for you. I'll leave it at that.
I love that. I love that. I wish I was the one she was saving love for. Thank you so much, Rico.
And I'm very excited to be a part of this because I do believe that the subject matter that we're going to be talking about is something that it can't be, you can't use it as a hashtag or kind of like in a sentence on Instagram. It is something that requires a conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. This is such a important time in our business. So thank you so much for being a part of this. I'm so excited to talk with you. Our next guest is, let's see if I say this right. Noel Jackson, no relation to Brick.
No. You said that perfectly, Mirage. You look amazing tonight. Just wanted to throw that out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, love. Yes, what's up, world? It's your girl, Noel Jackson, and I'm originally from Seattle area and moved down to good old beautiful Los Angeles about 3 years ago. You might recognize me from a familiar game show called The Weakest Link. And I'm also like one of the I won, y'all.
She won, y'all.
I did. Spoiler alert.
I watched that episode.
And so I'm also an actress and a producer as well. And I just started writing my first short, which I'll be shooting back in my hometown at the end of the year. And I am just very grateful to be here, especially to talk about this serious subject matter. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, that's so great. You're so beautiful. And thank you for being a part of this. And you were definitely not the weakest link, were you? I mean,
nope, not at all, Hunty.
Thank you for spin off for this. All right. Thank you so much, Noel. And our next guest is Onika Day, like daytime. I'm trying to throw something in there for everybody.
Hi, I'm Onika Day. I'm delighted to be here. Been a part of the Afro Comic Con family now for I don't know how many years now, but I discovered them in my hometown, Berkeley, Oakland, California. Represent. Lived in Los Angeles as well, and now I'm in New York City. I'm pretty much bi-coastal, tri-coastal. Wherever you want me to work, I will work. I've done over 35. I was just counting my television credits recently. It's like over 35 credits in front of the camera. Behind the camera, there's many more. I love directing and producing as well. Most recently, I could be seen on SVU with Ice-T, the infamous Ice-T. I've done everything from like Dexter, the original Law and Order. I've done multiple parts that's been cut out, like, but a lot of stuff I'm in. I play a stripper, addict. Worked with. Very fortunate to have worked with so many, directors and writers and other actors and producers that I admire. And I actually follow the footsteps of the famous video vixen, or how do you say male vixen, Rico. Rico. I was like in Tupac's last video, so I have like a wonderful fan base of my To Live and Die in LA crew. Most recently, I discovered the car, and I'm friends with even the guy that owns the car that we were in for that video as well. So I've been doing this a long time, theater, film, television, and grateful to be amongst all you beautiful people here, beautiful Black people as well.
So grateful to be around you, beautiful Black woman, and I am really excited to see how we move forward and what discussions we have. I have a feeling we're not going to have enough time. That's what that's my prediction. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next guest, and that is Abby Ekeneser. I say that with a question. I know that's your last name. Hello.
Uh-oh.
Can't hear you.
We're having some issues with your audio.
I think we're on Bluetooth, so it's feedback, and I'm hearing my voice. I really like it though. I like hearing my voice.
Very brick of you. Abby, I'm not sure what's happening, but if you really quickly, maybe try to come again, that might
Technology.
have your space saved. All right. Okay, Abby's going to come back, and we'll get to know more about Abby. But for right now, let's go ahead and get this started. How about that? You want to go ahead and do that? Wonderful. This past year in pandemic, it's been a really, I guess, awakening for a lot of us, especially in our community. I wanted to open just the discussion up to each of you and kind of ask you what kind of experience you had from 2020, the beginning of the pandemic, to now, and what kind of evolution you've had, because it's kind of sped things up for all of us in this industry.
Anyone in particular?
Anybody can jump in with it.
Well, I'll start the ball rolling. I lived in Europe for 13 years, and I remember thinking when I lived there that I wish that Americans were more politically minded. But then when I moved back here and we became more politically minded, I saw how vicious it became, how personal it became, and that people could not talk politics without it being personal. It couldn't be spoken with on an intellectual level. It always seemed to go straight to a personal level, which is very unfortunate. And now I kind of wish that we Americans were less politically minded. The problem with politics, I think, in general in America is that we often label the person by their political view. And if we look at an individual, if you look at me, for instance, if you look at me and you ask me about social issues, you probably think I'm a very liberal-minded person. If you ask me about financial issues, you probably think I'm quite conservative. And to label me one of those things, I think is probably a little misleading, because it really doesn't define me no more than water defines me, because I drink water. I'm also going to say something that I kind of found a bit of a revelation, and maybe not all will agree on, but I thought that the pandemic, as horrific as it was a necessary reset, a reboot, one might say. I also felt that the past president, I don't even use his name, but the past president, I thought, I think we're going to look back 5-10 years from now, and we're going to think that that was a blessing in disguise. And I say this purely because, not because he did a great job, but just because he was not the brightest person in that position, to be in that position. And because he wasn't, it was very transparent what his aim was, his actions, and I think America needed to see that. And because I think one of the things about America, and when I lived abroad, I mean, you really do learn your country better when you see it from the outside in. You know, you get a truer version of it. Whether a country is doing it on purpose, or whether it just happens coincidentally, there's a certain amount of propaganda that takes place. And it wasn't until I moved away that I was able to feel like I really saw America for its true self. And strangely enough, I came back 13 years later, more patriotic than when I left. And I never expected that. But I also felt like I knew this country more. Part of that was because I went to Africa a number of times. And I think first of all, I think every person of color should go back to their country, because it gives you a sense of pride that you can't get from this country. And especially if you're an African American. And when I went back to Africa, I thought, I'm going back home. But when I got to Africa, I realized that I was not African. I was African American. I didn't speak the language. I didn't dress that way. I didn't know the culture. And at the same time, I also felt that a pride that I had never felt before. I had to redefine my definition of beauty, because I had been given a definition that I felt like wasn't right. I touched ground in Kenya and saw the most beautiful women in the world, and instantly had to redefine my definition of beauty. And it was a beautiful thing. But I also realized that I wasn't African, that I was African American. And that then made me think, I want to improve my country, because that is my country. I'm not African, I'm African American. And as proud as I am of being from having that heritage, I actually know this is my country now. And if you're a true, if you really love your country, you want your country to be the best that it can be. And that's why I became an activist, and so much of an activist that I was thinking about running for politics at one point. I don't know if you can mention a march that I haven't been involved in on some level. And I stopped posting after when Trump got elected, because I just felt like these things really require more than just a one line. It requires conversation, and I'm glad we're having that. So I'll leave it right there.
Oh, that's wonderful. Some of the things that you said were really they really rang with me, and a lot of it has to do with the concept of perspective. I think that being here in this country as a person of color, that we have this one perspective that's kind of been implanted in us here. And I know a lot of a lot of leaders who leave the country to have a different perspective and to have a different view of us, of who we are, to be around other people that that can relate to us outside of the perspective of the United States. And I think that's really important. That's an important point. Also, the fact that we as African Americans here feel homeless. Like, it's basically we have no home. Like, so we have these different associations, but also not a place that we feel grounded in. And perhaps anyone have a different.
You are so right. As a matter of fact, when I was in South Africa, they referred to us, and it's not meant to be a slight or an insult. They refer to us as lost.
Mm.
And basically, because we lost our language, we lost our culture, we lost our there's so many things. We lost our family, we lost we don't even have our last names, so they refer to us as lost, and they welcome us back, to with open arms, and also to re-educate us. Yeah. And I also felt that the Africans very much felt that America has a great deal to offer Africa, and that Africa has a great deal to offer America.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's about us finding each other and grounding ourselves in this home that we're creating, which is part of this panel here, to kind of create this home here for us that belongs to us and for us. We do have Abby here. Can you speak, Abby?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm so sorry.
Okay. Technology.
I'm right in between a play right now, and so I've been commuting back and forth because I think this is one of the first plays that has been thrown since the pandemic happened. So we're kind of, celebrating that. We're in our final week, and yeah.
Congratulations on being on the stage right now, because that is an accomplishment. So yes.
Yeah, our feelings were definitely half in, half out, because we weren't even sure if it was going to happen or not. So yeah.
So tell us about yourself. Where are you coming from, and who are you, and what do you stand for? And
so my pronouns are they, them. I am a mom, which is most important. I have a 20-year-old son who I absolutely adore. I graduated with a computer science degree in New Jersey, and was in the World Trade Center when everything happened. And so I decided to join the Navy to do what I could, I guess. I don't even know, because after I got out, it was kind of the same treatment, right? Where you're thinking that you're a part of this beloved country because you went and fought for it and deployed and experienced things with other people, and then you come back and it's like, like, why do you even exist? So I became an advocate and an actress, writer, producer, singer, voiceover actress. Actually, we just Noel and I actually just did a spot for Afro Comic Con for a new Marvel/Warp audio drama that will be released next year, and I got to be with like Cree Summer and just a number of other amazing, super talented voiceover actors and actresses, and just being opposite of Cree Summer was like, hi. So yeah, and actually Noel once again and I have a film that literally talks about everything that you said, Rico. We are having a young artist discover her African American side, and she actually travels to Nigeria to find out a little bit more about who her, who or what her heritage was. And it talks about the division between African American and African culture, and the reason why there's that divide, the things that happened in the 90s that caused that divide. And I think it's really important. Like, I'm so glad to be a part of this panel because I mean, America needed to take a turn a long time ago, and they're finally getting a chance to. And once again, with what Rico is saying about, going outside of your country, like I grew up in England. And so having this perspective as someone from a different country, and then being in America and being exposed to all of the things that we're exposed to, it makes you put a lot in perspective, and in a place that you're supposed to call home, is it actually your home? And are you doing everything you can to fight for it? And do you want to do everything you can to fight for it? So yeah. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much for being here and for that wonderful intro. I'm going to open it up to anyone else who wants to speak on that topic as well. The concept too of just not having a place to be, and the perspective that we have as performers here in the United States. If you'd like to jump in. I can talk. I can keep talking.
Yeah.
I could talk forever, but I think we should hear from someone else.
Yeah.
Well, I
just talked, so
I'll jump in then. I actually, it's interesting because I moved here permanently. I was here in Los Angeles for about 6 months in 2019, and then I moved here in 2020 in January. And as we all know, the pandemic really started to take a hold less than 2 months after being here. So it was a very interesting thing to live in. I'm in a new city, new situation, and then all of a sudden we're in this new world, essentially, where it's this pandemic that nobody knows is what to do with. I mean, we all thought that it was going to be over in a month or a couple weeks. We're like, there's no way we're going to be down that long, guys. Everybody just take a breath and calm down.
I was in that meeting with you.
Yeah.
We talked about it then.
Yeah. I mean, and then 7-8 months later, we're like, we'll be done with this in a couple more months. We've been here long enough. And then it just kind of kept snowballing. And, LA is already kind of a daunting thought process as an actor to come to LA because, I stopped telling people I was moving to LA when I was living in Atlanta because, of course, everybody tells you their horror stories. I was here for 15 years and I didn't book a single role. Well, I ain't you. But that stuff, that toxicity can get in your head if you're not careful. So, like, I kind of like.
I feel so exposed and attacked right now.
But I guess and I kind of learned from that process, that you're like you can't adopt everyone else's story and make it your own. You got to go out and step out on faith and trust yourself and trust your gut that you're making the right decision. But I questioned that within the first couple months because then all of a sudden this pandemic hit, and then Atlanta opens up months before LA does, and we're still shut down. We're still wearing masks. And one of the things that I loved, I mentioned earlier, is sketch acting. Being on stage. And it's interesting enough, the last time I was on stage doing a show is one that Mirage directed. That was the last time I've been on stage. And I look back at that show and it was an amazing show. And it was our first show of the year. And we haven't been able to do another show live on stage since then. So it's been tough. But this year things have changed. They figured out how to navigate through, these protocols. I've taken more COVID tests than I ever imagined I would ever take. I'm probably at about 35 at this point, and I'm probably lowballing myself right now. But in terms of like, it just felt like an extra weight. And then you add the social injustice, the marches, the George Floyd situation on top of a pandemic. I mean, on top of just us not really knowing what to do next. It was a daunting task. But I think I definitely agree with Rico when he says it was oddly the breath we all needed to take. It was oddly a way to settle down for a second. And don't get me wrong, I don't like the way that we had to do it, but there's no other way we could have done it than to sit back and be able to take that breather. And I've always been the kind of person who is like, when it comes to being an actor, where I'm always like, oh man, when am I going to work again? And I've always been just this like hyperactive actor. Like I'm just like, I'm ready to work. Put me in, coach. How come they didn't cast me? What's wrong with that? You know what I mean? Like, I literally didn't watch the whole first season of P-Valley because I auditioned for it and I didn't get it. So,
I love
so
that
I literally didn't
show.
watch it. I know Rico's on. I literally didn't watch it. I was mad I didn't get it. I liked the script. I was mad I didn't get it. So I still haven't watched P Valley. I still have PTSD from that audition. From not getting it. But the biggest thing was,
That's
it
me in The
allowed.
Wire.
Oh
I would feel the
man.
same way. I
We
think
all have
but I
those
think
vengeance, those
we all
vengeance
have them,
plots. They're like, I'm
right? But I think for me though, like it allowed me to take a step back, and I wasn't that worried actor because I'm like, yo, the whole thing shut down. What am I going to do about it? So I'm glad we're back to where we are now. I'm glad that we're able to have these kind of conversations now more openly. But at the same time, it's unfortunate the way we had to have these conversations. But I think fortunately for myself, I would say the pandemic affected me in a positive manner. I was able to dust off some old sketches and some old pilots and stretch my creativity a little bit farther. But, it was a weird, when you think about it, it's like a weird juxtaposition almost of like, here's all this tragedy and all this pandemic and all this harm, but at the same time, I'm growing as a person. I almost felt guilty to grow. And it grew into being a positive 2021, but at the same time, it was a really weird time frame. But we're coming out of it. We're on the other side of it. We made it, and we're still fighting, but we're here. That's what's most important. So.
yeah. The interesting thing about this past couple, or this year and a half, almost past a year and a half now, right? Or a year and a half, whatever.
It's a year and a half. Yeah, almost 2 years.
We don't count
Almost
last
2
year.
years.
Last year never happened.
This last
Doesn't exist.
25 years that
At
we've
the
been
end of
going.
21, so like,
Come on.
Right now,
We skipped from
going on.
2019 to 2021.
exactly.
We're still
Yeah.
in.
Now when I see people, it's like, oh my God, it's been 2 years. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
It's like, what you talking about? No, it hasn't.
Exactly.
right. For me personally, coming out of the, I spoke on this, I think last year on a panel, one of our panels, that, prior to the official pandemic, happening, like I had to go back home and take care of my mother. So I was pretty much on lockdown with her. She had cancer and dementia and trying to like reel in, this wild personality, and my mother's Polish German, but she's all power to the people. Growing up in the Bay Area, it's like, all of this uprising, all that stuff. We've been doing that my whole life, So like when people kind of try to recruit me, I'm like, look, I done paid my dues. I'm tired. Like, I'll be a social activist, like a Instagram gangbanger, activist, but it's hard for me. But I didn't have tear gas and all that stuff thrown at me when I was in elementary and high school. So little bit of anxiety, but as far as watching kind of like you said, Rico, like leaving the country, like I'm very much a like living in the country and kind of watch everything as an outsider. I used to be very vocal about things, but now I don't really have a lot of the energy to argue with people, and most of the time you're never going to change someone's opinion, so it's just going to be a constant argument about things. So I just kind of sit back and watch and see, okay, well, I know how to deal with, you can discuss things and bring up, insightful conversations and, have a way to influence maybe, but it's very hard to change someone's mind, everybody's mind, even my mind, about certain things. I'm open to everybody's opinions and stuff, but I have a way that I like to live. But, going into the pandemic and, dealing with my mother, and it was kind of brought in like everything is not all about me, and me and my career is not all about, and I think like that's kind of helped me deal with whatever's going to come is going to come, and that's actually brought a little bit more success towards my way. But watching like everything like the perfect storm form with like everyone forced to watch the death of George Floyd, like forced, whereas people would have been about their lives of all colors instead of just us. That was like a beginning of like a it's like a revolution, and it was an Instagram revolution, which a lot of like of the old elder revolutionaries were talking about. Like now the revolution can be televised. This is what
Absolutely.
it's televised, and it brought about all these young activists and faces and people that but then it's so weird because I started watching, like, you know, it used to be about the right and the left, but now like the left is formed, you know, like all these people are, you know, oh, it's a conspiracy to that. Well, we've been dealing with conspiracies, but now you have a conspiracy on top of conspiracy where no one, you know, it's getting a little weird that way too, where I'm like, okay, this is, but you know, as far as like work and everything, you know, I was grateful enough. You know, I have a lot of friends that living in New York now, coming from California, like I'm immersed in the theater world, and you know, we all just, Broadway just opened back up, and there's what I think 6 Black Broadway plays, and one of my friends is, you know, my older sister mentor. She's playing like the, you know, in To Kill a Mockingbird, you know, so I cross the street and then there's like a Lynn Nottage play, and my girl Kara's on the, you know, and Ron Cephas Jones. I'm like, it's beautiful to see that, but they actually had to fight. They formed like a coalition of, you know, white theater owners. We see you, you know, and so that I'm so blessed and grateful to watch that there's this change that's happening and stuff. And then on my side, it's been a little bit difficult because I'll like read, you know, I watch the Shade Room and, you know, look at my little gossip things. And then I look at the comments, and it's been like, you know, I grew up, my mom's white, my dad's Black, from Oakland, East Oakland, you know, our family's from Mississippi. I don't really, you know, I've never was really, you know, didn't really know my white side as much as my Black side. I've always considered myself Black, you know, but I've been seeing like so many comments of like, you're not Black, you're not Black, you're not Black, oh, blah, 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 you're mixed, you're mixed, you're mixed. I'm like, what am I? You know, and then I'm doing a lot more castings now. And I'm like, oh, is this why, you know, like in my agents, we laugh about it because they'll put like, I'll have an audition, it's like a Black mother. They're like, you know, you're not gonna get the part. I'm like, you know, wait, no. Really, like, people, you know, they're like, oh, you're light skinned, you're gonna have more favor. I don't, you know, like throw me in a Latino, I'll get it. But then my Latina sisters are like, oh no, honey, you don't speak the, you know, I'm like, I wish, you know, because I could have faked it. Like, you know, there's a lot of my friends that are dark skinned, like, you know, Dominican, like, you know, Latinos, and they pass as Black, so they're getting rolled, you know, and it's just such a weird. I auditioned for what was the movie that just came out about the Black Fred Hampton,
Judas and the Black Messiah.
I bet you there's a dark, you know, and no hate, you know, I'm like, I bet you it's like that's gonna be a dark skinned Black woman, and it was. And then I was watching all of the like they had the Latino gangs and then the Black gang, you know, like none of the Black Panthers, and in real life there was a whole mix of, there was a rainbow coalition of Panthers, you know what I'm saying? Angela Davis is like, you know, Kathleen Cleavage is like, and you know, all sisters are like all different colors and stuff, and they were all, you know, of like a darker brown, and then like, you know, all the Latinos were all light skinned, and I'm like, you know, so it's been weird for me as far as that, and I'm not, you know, but that's my own coming out. I think it's been a little bit more, there's been a lot more friction, you know, especially because, you know, I think as our people have been oppressed for so long, of course they're going to be like, we need this, that. But it's like, I think it's becoming so much more divided on that end out of this, which is like there has to be some sort of way to put it all back in.
I mean, I think we've always been divided on it, right? It's just more apparent now because more and more productions are actually, you know, you have people who shout out colorism, like in the Heights, right? Like that was a huge thing where people were like, oh, I mean, you guys know that they're, you know, darker Latinas, and none of that was used. And it was like, can we, I mean, I get it, but we just need to all just celebrate each other, you know, like as much as we possibly can, because there's been this huge divide and like in so long. Like you go to Nigeria, and if you see an albino person, they're seen as a demon. They're seen as Satan because they're different. They look different, you know, and it's like, it's those old beliefs that have literally been passed down, you know, in some shape or form, and it's been twisted to where we now have a divide here in America against our own people.
Right. That's part of what I see as America's original sin is that racism has been its problem, and that racism has also affected us the way we live. Being a Black person, whether you are half Black or whether you're a quarter Black, if you were brought up in a Black community around Black people, then that's who you are.
Right.
You know, and that's who you identify with. And you can put that person who may look light skinned in an all white area, and they may feel uncomfortable in that area because that's not the area that's not their comfort zone. But my biggest problem with America is that we see everything through a lens of race and of color. And I'm sure that you being from Britain, and I'm not saying that Britain doesn't have racial problems.
Oh, they're super racist.
they have their problems too. I lived there for 13 years. But what I did find was not everything was seen through a lens of race. When I would come back here, I remember talking to my mom, and she was talking about some incident that happened, and it involved a lawyer. And she had to tell me what color the lawyer was. And really, it wasn't about the color of the lawyer. It was really that person was a lawyer. But it's just that we're so used to thinking of race. And that's the problem that we have. You know, if you walk in there in an audition and you walk in there to play a Black girl and you kill it, I don't care if you're purple. If you kill it, you get the role, girl. You know, you rock the role. And that's my biggest problem with America is that we are obsessed with color. And it all started because it was designed that way. It was designed so that we would be focusing on color because the powers that be always knew if Black people and poor white people ever realized that they were in the same boat and rose up against them, the same thing that happened in Russia would have happened here in America. Those people would have gotten rid of all of those elites and run the country as the Constitution meant it to be, for the people, of the people, by the people.
Very true.
And I think one of the things.
The crazy thing with what you were saying with England too, is that I would have never ever, the whole time that I was there, I would have never ever believed that racism was an issue there when I was there, because when I was younger, like, some guy came up to me and it was like, "Miss, your knickers are showing." And I was like, "What did you call me?" And my cousin is like, "They don't say that here." And I was like, he was like, "Your knickers, your skivvies." And I was like, "Oh, you mean my underwear. Got it." You know? But as soon as like the prince wants to marry a Black woman, then everyone's like, "Oh no, N-word this and whatever." And I'm like, where did you guys come from?
And what a missed opportunity as well, right? Because that could have been a place where the queen and her family could have shown that they had evolved. And they blew that opportunity. And if you look at what England rules over, you know, they rule over all these Black countries, and they could have shown that, listen, we're doing this because that's who we are now. And they missed that opportunity, and shame on them. When I lived in England, there's also another problem. I would walk around and I would see people treat me one way, but the moment I opened my mouth and I spoke with an American accent, all of a sudden I was treated better because I was a Yank. And so there was racism even in being Black, and it didn't matter what color I was. Just by my accent alone, it gave me a certain status that other people didn't have.
Well, I think I'm back, by the way.
We missed you. We missed you.
Yeah. Y'all had it down, though. Y'all were.
No, girl, we sent out a search party.
And you found me. You found that fast? That's amazing. So one of the things that I did hear you all saying is the way that we're looked at here in America, and one of the quotes that came to me was that it's harder, or it's easier to fool someone than to convince them that they've been fooled. So that perspective of like of how do we separate people in a way that is easy? How, you know, the concept of race or the concept of division here is because of your skin color. You can easily see someone and say, this is someone that shouldn't be in this group, or this is someone who I don't have to, or I can place this particular sign on without them actually wearing a sign or having a tattoo or whatever it is that they have to have. It's just a visual thing. It's immediate. And it's something that's easy because we are in a society that values segregation. And it's kind of what that's what makes the money here. It's kind of this false sense of hierarchy.
But Mirage, I was thinking about when you were gone is that we're talking about how racism has kind of been the basis of this country, and it's also it's a thing of familiarity because if we're so used to it that it's a natural way to it's part of the culture.
Yes.
I moved from Chicago to Florida to go to high school, and I went to Florida, and the high school that I was bused to was called Plantation High. Nobody saw that as nobody had a problem with that. And me as a young kid, I'm only 12, 13 years old, and I'm thinking Plantation High?
Oh,
you know, and so it set the groundwork that yes, this is what you are here to expect, and there's no wonder why when it comes to real issues, Florida is always one of those people that have issues because it's so embedded and they're so used to it, they don't even see it. It's not even shining to them.
Don't even get me started about soup plantation. Okay, I'm not even going to go there. We've already discussed this. That's not okay. Okay, because in Denver, it's also called sweet tomato. So that's just like, there's no reason for it.
Right.
And I don't want to take us off course because I know y'all had a whole thing going, but my at the beginning of the pandemic, my father was actually murdered by a police officer in a very similar way that happened with George Floyd, except for the fact that there were no cameras and there was no way to kind of make the document except for witnesses. And at that time, witnesses are very easily discredited, right? So this is not what we want. So this is not how it's going to happen. We have had these issues since I was a child, which, by the way, wasn't a very long time ago. But still, it's something that has been happening for a long time. Our experience in this industry is not something new to us. And I wanted to ask each of you what your response to how this new kind of awakening in the industry, especially when it comes to Black women or women of color, period. This new awakening of how all of a sudden we see these certain things may not be right. These are certain gaps that we have in our in our industry, where as people who have always been this color, we know already. And
Right.
What is your response to that? How has that affected you?
Well, I see everyone wants me to go, so I
was looking at you though.
Everybody was looking at me.
You're behind the
I was getting ready to call your name, girl.
Everybody's like, hey.
I was about to say on three. Everybody say 801.
No, I'm just so captivated by everyone's story. So there's that. I would like to preface with this. So in my family, I come from a long line of activism, and my uncle actually, most of my family is from Detroit, Michigan, and my uncle, and come on, in the D. So my uncle had spearheaded a movement back in the 90s in Detroit to assist in releasing Nelson Mandela from prison. And while I'm not well-traveled, my oldest sister is because of her time in the military. So a few years back, she had visited Nelson Mandela's cell, as well as other landmarks there. And there is a plaque that thanks the city of Detroit for helping in his release. And that's directly in dedication to my uncle, Uncle Duke.
Nice. Wow. Nice.
So
Beautiful.
thank you so much. And Yeah, he's an amazing dude. He kind of crazy with the whole conspiracy theories, but he be right. He be right. That's my homie.
Right.
And so when the pandemic happened, man, it really forced everybody to sit down. And as a Black woman, seeing Ahmaud Arbery, seeing Breonna Taylor, seeing George Floyd, I felt like that was my family being killed. And the response to me was lukewarm. And I realized that I'm still alive. I have a voice. I have nieces and nephews. I have younger cousins that I could be speaking for. My uncle did it. My mama did it. I can speak. And I was like, I'm not afraid of no little COVID-19. We're getting killed left and right already. So I marched. I used my social media to speak out. So much so that a friend of mine was creating a documentary about COVID-19 and the effects of everyone. So she interviewed everyone from LA to Thailand, from Thailand to China. And she created this beautiful documentary called COVID-19, A Look Back. Her name is, I don't know why I blanked out her name, but I will definitely put it in the chat. She's gonna kill me. But long story short, it just aired, it just premiered actually in the San Diego Film Festival as well as the Seattle Latino Film Festival.
Up
and I
here.
felt, up in Seattle. And I felt like while I'm still here, I have a voice and I have a responsibility to speak out about injustice that's happening to us on a daily basis. I understand that COVID-19 is a real threat. My cousin did pass away from complications of COVID-19. And so with all of that tragedy, there's still beauty of being here, being in this vessel, being alive, and being a woman of color, a Black woman. I want to be very clear, a Black woman. And being able to use my voice to make history. I feel like Black history is not something in the past, it's right here, current, right now. And I would have been remiss if I just sat and did nothing. And during that time, I felt so anxious. I started screenwriting. I had no idea how to screenwrite. I just knew that I just wanted to start writing. So I just started writing, and I wrote a short film that I'll be shooting up there, yes, in Seattle and in the Tacoma area in Washington, as well as a story titled Black, and it is about sex trafficking and how it affects us as women of color. And so it really ignited a light and a fire in me that regardless of the circumstances, we have the responsibility to keep moving forward and to honor our ancestors by speaking out. Because I literally believe that they cry for us. They wept for us. They persevered for us to be here. And so as a Black woman, I have a responsibility to continue to move our story forward.
Yeah, I think that's so beautiful.
I just wanted to tell you guys, I got to step off camera for a little bit, so but I'll be back. But I also wanted to piggyback on what A. Noel said. First of all, I think this country will be a better country when we have at least 50% of our congressmen and senators female. I think, and I'm not saying this because guys say stuff like that. I'm saying this because I honestly believe that men have an ego that often gets in the way of things. I also believe that women are wired to care more about the community. Men are very good at focusing on, I'm speaking in general terms, of course, on one thing and really focusing on that and knocking that thing out of the park. But women are really good at multitasking. And if you're a politician, that's what you need to do. You need to multitask. I was so wanting a woman to become president because I think, and it doesn't just have to be a woman. It has to be the right woman for the first woman. You know,
Right.
that's really important because that could set us back. But also, you know, I have to give credit, props to the women during this pandemic, because the women have really stepped up and shown what their brilliance, you know, how exceptional Black women are. But when I went out on my first march for George Floyd, I was shocked. Coming in from living in LA, I was shocked how many non-Blacks were out there. I was baffled because I walked out there and I thought, this thing has woken up white America. It has woken them up. They have been in denial. A lot have been in denial. Some were just not noticing it at all, weren't paying attention. But as Brick said, I think it was Brick who was saying that, you know, when you're in the pandemic and you're locked down and you're forced to watch it, you know, you cannot watch it. Yeah, and when you see these things happen, and when the humanity comes out of you, and so I was shocked how. And for me, the first march was such a beautiful, beautiful thing. Oh my God. I walked and the love that was there. Then nightfall came and some people came and started being violent and breaking stuff. And then it kind of whole thing changed. But those first 4 hours, I mean, the love was just all there. And it all came from, it was the same kind of love that you might have felt when Barack Obama first got elected. You know, it wasn't Black love, it was human love, and everybody was a part of it. But I do think that, you know, when we move forward is when we get more women in positions of decision making.
Yeah, I think that I believe that one of the things, and even within our industry as well, is the concept of representation that I don't think that is really, it's not approached correctly. We think that representation is just how you look or a certain type, where it does have to do with what I keep coming back to, perspective, that perspective, and where the idea that, just piggybacking off of Rico, there is that we don't all come from the same place just because we look the same. We're all different types of people. We all have different dreams and different hopes and different desires. In our industry, we need to not just have Black performers. We also need to have Black writers, Black directors, Black producers, Black women in all of those areas as well. One of the things I always say about Black women in this industry is that you've given us nothing to lose. So we're the most powerful people that you can possibly come in contact with right now, because we don't have anything to lose. We're going to go straight forward. And that's why I'm thinking, well, creating at this time is so imperative. I don't know if anybody else has any comments. Brick, I saw you nodding there.
Yeah, like representation to me, I think is a constant conversation that I've been having with friends of mine. I know, Mirage, you've kind of been in the middle of that conversation in the improv sketch comedy theater world here in LA, which is notoriously white, male driven. I have been the Black guy in several sketch comedy groups over the years, and it's one of the hardest things in the world to do, to be able to represent yourself. Like, I'll give you an example. In the sketch comedy show that I was working on, it was an all Black sketch comedy show that we had. We had a once a month show in LA, and one of the episodes that we were going to do is I had wrote a sketch about Kurt Franklin. I'm not going to go into detail because I don't want any of y'all to steal this idea. But the sketch was about Kurt Franklin. And what was amazing, I sat there and I thought to myself, you know what, man? There ain't nowhere in the world I would have been able to write a Kurt Franklin sketch in some of these white groups I was in. They don't know who he is. So from a cultural standpoint, it's great to be around people that look like you, that are from the same culture from you and same culture as you and things like that. And I think the one thing about representation that I've seen take a turn, because as beautiful as representation as the conversation has been, one of the things I'm most afraid of is that we're going to start pitting ourselves against each other, because there's this idea that if I'm in, you might not, that if you're in, I might not get in. You know what I mean? Like essentially, if I don't know if anybody else is hearing that, or am I having a stroke? Am I having a stroke? Okay,
No,
I'm not. Okay, cool.
you're good.
All right. But for me, when I think about like, I don't want to live in fear that one of my other brown brothers and sisters are going to get an advantage because right now the flavor of the month, because we know how the industry treats us, is that the flavor of the month is going to be these brown people or these types of marginalized people, and I think there's enough room for all of us, but sometimes Hollywood doesn't, or the industry doesn't act like there's room for all of us. And then I think sometimes, unfortunately, it starts this unnecessary, almost hateration and holleration in the dancery against other brown people. It's like, I don't want them to come up like, oh man, he got the part. Oh dang, he got the part. Oh, they had to give it to. All of a sudden, we start talking about like the people that we have been trying to fight against for the longest. So I think representation is important across the board. And I will end this little part with this. One thing that I've been so encouraged by and thankful about is I've worked with so many talented Black women directors over the last few years. I wanted to list them, but to be honest with you, I can't remember everybody. But that's a good thing because it's been so many that I've definitely am thankful to see that. And whether it was on Tiffany Johnson, I worked with on Black Monday. Najinga Stewart, who I worked with on a show called From Scratch on Netflix, or Crystal Robertson, who is now one of the executive producers of the show Queens on ABC that just premiered last night. Worked with her on American Soul. Seeing these young Black women at the helm of these shows that are on these networks is so encouraging to me, and I look forward to seeing it happen more and more. So encouraging everyone under the sound of our voice, if you are a Black woman and you're apprehensive or you're nervous, you got to just go for it because there's room for you. And I think that it's been an amazing experience to work with so many great women, Black women, and I look forward to working with more going forward.
Yeah,
So,
and I think
that's incredible.
I was going to say something really quickly what Brick was saying. I think that also comes with education too, giving Black youth a chance to learn because they don't get the same opportunities as other youth, right? So you have to cultivate them young. I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why, and actually, it was something off of what A. Noel had did a couple of years ago, where she was trying to put like a forum together for youth or like just youth in general, for people who want to be involved in film community, education, without them paying 5 to 6 to 7 digits, of money that they don't have to go to school for this stuff because they don't get the same opportunities, right? So we actually started a local group here that is a film youth camp, and we literally go out into the community or go through our film friends, right? People who are union and they are doing it, and we're like, hey, if you know anyone, parents or otherwise, that are looking to have their kids involved in this program, it's free. Like we just want them to have the opportunities, right? Like if they want to hold a camera or know how to work a camera, if they want to be able to write a script, or if they want to create a story, if they want to act, there's so many kids that don't have that opportunity, or maybe they teach it in school for like a semester, or
barely,
depending on the school that they go to, they get made fun of, right? Like I remember when I was younger going to secondary school and like wanting to be in a play and being made fun of for doing that. And so being able to cultivate those minds and say, hey, you are allowed to dream. You are allowed to create stories. You're allowed to create your stories. And there are a ton of people who look like you that want to help you is really important.
That's
too.
why it's so important to, like, we were back, before we started taping, they were talking about shooting in neighborhoods and stuff. And my friend Bone, that is, the liaison for shooting in gang infested areas, feels like it's so important to actually shoot in those neighborhoods, because he brings the kids that are like curious and riding the bike, here, grab a seat. You want to watch this? You want to meet the director? You want to meet and be like, what would you do if you were on this set to be able to do that? In Los Angeles, in New York, me living in New York, I see that there are so many, especially because it's such a tight, like, you can't move around without bumping into people. And we shoot in the neighborhoods, and there's always kids that come out, and they have a program called, Ghetto Film School. There's a lot of, really good programs for the kids to be able to do that. Even the public theater, they invite, they make sure they outsource to schools to make sure that they have a certain amount of tickets to give to the kids to come see a play, like Hamilton before Hamilton's on Broadway, so they have those bragging rights to say that and stuff. But it really, really is important, especially in Los Angeles. I know Ava's doing something out there now, but I know a lot of people, the resources to, like me, I'm gonna find what I have to do, what I want. But a lot of people have. So that's great what you guys are doing. It's really important to start with the youth too.
And I just wanted to say this too, to piggyback off of that. I think it's important to encourage kids, especially, to go into the arts, because the thing about it is that I saw more kids that were encouraged to play football, like at my high school, than to do a play or to write something creative. And to be honest, our team won 3 games my senior year. Y'all ain't going to the NFL, so
Right.
ain't nothing wrong with it's beyond just like it is. One thing that delayed me into becoming an actor is that it didn't feel viable because I wasn't in an environment that encouraged it. I didn't think for one second that I could do it, which is why I didn't do it until it was much later. So I definitely believe that I think I love when I'm hearing about those programs and things like that, because I would love to see more kids say, I want to be an actor, I want to be a director, I want to be a writer, et cetera, than saying, hey, I want to be the next Steph Curry.
I love that.
Yeah, we do also have to make sure that we have parents that encourage that too. You have to make sure that you have parents that don't discourage it. Because I know when I was growing up, just having Nigerian parents, like, you're not allowed to do anything that's not a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer or computers or whatever. Like, literally when you're born, you have to pick 3 options and that's it. But then as soon as I did that, I did my time, right? I went to school for computers, got my degree, but then the World Trade Center happened, and computer infrastructures fell down and no one could get jobs like that, and so that's why I went into the military. And you have those parents who are like, if you can open their eyes, especially if you work in those types of communities where there are parents that do the after school programs and stuff like that, and you say, hey, we have a film program. You might not be into it, but do you mind if we talk to your kid and you can be there and, see if they might have an interest or something like that? Because I'm going to tell you right now, the first time my mom saw me in a movie, she was like, how can I, I'm going to be in your next movie. And I was like, sorry, Mom, you have to audition.
You're right.
Just like everybody else. And she was like, do you know what my audition was? It was 23 hours in labor with you. So that is my, okay, cool. I'll give you a small role, no problem. You can be the crazy old lady in the background, shouting out obscenities or something like that, right? So we also have to make sure that, even though we have those kids that might be interested, you might have those kids that are interested, but they don't have the acceptance from their parents too, whether it's just schools. It's parents.
Abby,
also.
that's why we do what we do, because I mean, you where we're from, Abby. There have been many sets that I've been on, working my way up as a production assistant, and thanks, Rick. Working my way up as a production assistant, and I would be the only Black female PA, time and time again. And it grew so frustrating. And so that's why I started speaking in schools up there. I started speaking in different school districts in Washington State, just so I made sure that the next generation knew that this is a viable way to make a living, be creative, and be seen. And so it really does come down to communicating that fact and being able to reach the parents and letting them know that this is an actual business. It's not just fluff.
Well,
it's a business of entertainment.
I'll say this about P Valley. I've been in the business for over 30 years, and very often I was the O&O, the one and only on set. And I I went to P Valley, and P Valley is produced by a woman. It was created by a woman. Every episode is directed by a woman or a different woman. It is the leads are all women. It is a female tour de force, and because it's all women, they can say shit in the script that probably men couldn't get away with.
Yes.
But what I learned about that, what was most impressive to me about that production, was when you looked at the cast, it was diverse. But when you looked at the crew, let me tell you, I'd never seen a female camera woman before. P Valley. I had never seen that many women directors just go there and slay. I had never seen focus pullers and all these different. I mean, the crew was really diverse with nationalities and with race, but also it showed what women can do if you give them a shot. And so it also shows that whoever's at the head, you have a certain amount of power, and as we all know, with power comes responsibility.
Yes.
And so what she did was she decided, we are going to make this crew a sexually diverse crew, gender diverse crew, and it was, and it showed that if there's a will, there's a way. I also wanted to comment on what you were talking about, Noel. You were saying that you didn't think you could write, and you wrote, and you now you're going to shoot this short. Let me tell you something. We can no longer wait for Hollywood to write our stories.
Absolutely.
There's something that took place, and I know you guys remember when 2 years in a row it was hashtag Oscar so white.
Oh.
Remember that period?
Yeah.
And then you remember the thing.
So white.
You remember the thing about that happened with Saturday Night Live. They wanted to bring on a black woman, and they said, a black comedian. They says, well, we couldn't find her. And those stories have also been repeating because you can find you're saying that they're not talented black comedians, or are you saying that you don't know where to look?
Exactly.
Is that what you're saying? Because I'm getting confused here because I know what's out there. So when that happened, a professor, I'm a graduate. I have a master's from UCLA, and I love that school because they not only gave me a position, but they also gave me a free ride in the arts. And they gave 2 black people a free ride in the arts. And there were 12 people from all over the world that was accepted into that master's program. Out of the 12 people, the 2 people that were the most successful were the 2 black people.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when you give someone, you open that door, you don't know what could happen. So I'm saying to you, Noel, listen, you know what? Writing is about rewriting, and it's like anything else. If you do it and you do it enough, you're gonna get better and better at it. But we cannot wait for Hollywood to write our stories. So this professor from UCLA, he did a 5-year study on and it was titled "Why Hollywood Doesn't Look Like America."
Yeah.
And basically his study showed that basically what Hollywood had a formula that worked in the 50s, and they've been working that same formula, which is basically in my own words, the default is white, and then everything else is just, we'll add that on. But the default is white. And so I then joined the board of SAG-AFTRA and led a charge to say that the default should be talent. And I will pat myself on the back because I was part of the people who put the language in to create more diversity, and it's now we're seeing it. But now that the door is open to a certain degree, but this professor showed that having a diverse cast not only is the right thing to do humanitarianly and for our society, but he says if you don't do it, it's going to affect your pocketbook. And he got Hollywood's attention when he showed the statistics. He gave an example of how, I know you guys remember the car series, movie series out.
Fast and the Furious.
Fast and the Furious. Yes. Yeah. So this brother was on the panel talking also about this, and he was saying that he was one of the producers, and he says when they made that first movie and the box office numbers came back, he said it blew everybody in the room away. They said we have to make a second one because of that. The second one they made, the box office came back, blew everybody away. He says on Fast and Furious 5, they were still surprised. He says, this is a brother, he's about 40 years old with dreads on. He says, but I was surprised that they were still surprised. He said, because for me, it was obvious. You had the United Nations in the cast. So everybody was invested in this movie and everybody came. And that's why the box office are what they are. So he says, this movie traveled all over the world. It showed that what could happen. And then Lee Daniels came out with his movie, Empire. And it showed what you can do on television with black artists. So if you put the good material out there, not just black people are going to watch it, everybody's going to watch it. I don't know if you guys probably know because you're pretty up on everything, but the when they first came out with these black exploitation movies, it was a situation where Hollywood said, you know what, we're making movies, we're making money, but there's a black audience member out there that we're not getting their money. So let's get their money too. So they made some cheap black exploitation movies, thinking they'll get the black person's movie. But what they found was that everybody was interested in these people, and so they can continue to make more of them, and they only became quote unquote black exploitation films because all the money was going to white people.
Right.
They were making these movies and the money was flowing in, but there weren't black directors. There weren't a lot of black directors. There weren't a lot of black producers, and all of the money was rolling into white people. So that's why they call it exploitation film. But Hollywood knows, and they have a history of knowing that white people will tune in to black projects. But they were using that as an excuse for years and years, saying that we can't have these black. I had a movie I did in Bulgaria. And they cast me, and then they were trying. I had worked with this director on 2 movies at that time, and this is the 3rd movie. And he said, so he was trying to cast the male lead, and I'm like, why won't you cast me in that role? You know my work and everything. He says, because unless you're Denzel Washington or Samuel Jackson, it won't sell overseas. But what this 5-year study showed is that no, black travels too. So all of that was not true, and we do have to start writing our own stories. And if you keep on writing them and you keep on making them, girl, you're just going to get better and better and better. So good on you.
And I think that one of the things that's how Hollywood was created in the first place. That's how film was created in the first place. Is the fact that they were trying to get it wasn't something that was like, oh, this is the next big thing. It was the poor people started to go to see these moving pictures, and they decided, let's get some of that money here. So, I mean, there is the power there, and there is that the representation. There are so many things that I wanted to comment on. First of all, Abby, your story sounds like Sister Act 2. Just wanted to let you know. Another is the programs. One of the things that I noticed here in Hollywood is the fact that when you were talking, Rico, about setting a bar, the bar, especially in the comedy community, is white comedy. And comedy, of course, comes from the experience or familiarity. So when we're seeing comedy, or you see anytime we're in that community, and we see like, oh, I'm a comedian, or this person is a comedian, or we do comedy, they always think stand-up, because stand-up is kind of the place that Black comedians are known, because no one thinks they have that ability to get into break into that. you were talking as well, Annelle, about having a responsibility. And I wanted to ask you all about the diversity initiatives that are out there right now. We have to wrap it up really quick. We got 2 minutes. Diversity initiatives that are out there that kind of are pitting us against each other. How does that look from your perspective? And how does that also transfer into like using your voice or moving forward, even if you don't feel like you can, providing those opportunities for people, education opportunities, all of those things. And Onika, I would like for you to go.
Yeah.
Because
no, well, I actually have to, okay, just repeat the question real quick. I can wrap it up too.
Well, basically about how it looks to you with these diversity initiatives and how we can translate that into have the responsibility of using our voice for opportunities for other people. I know that's a long
I know. So, I mean, I can wrap it up really quick. I think that we have been doing a really good job of actually creating, opportunity, like diversity programs. People just don't know how to find them. Like for instance, like you're speaking like you were the only Black PA on set. I remember that like about 10 years ago, I would see 1 or 2 people of color, no women directors, all that in a set in New York. But then they started the Made in New York program where they would get tax breaks for, they had the PA training program, and now they have the editors post-production program. And now like, I would say like 1/3 of every set in New York is like minority, and because they move into different, PA, and they do a really kick-ass job. And then they're, wardrobe assistant or makeup assistant, and then they move into the head of ward, so you can move your way. It's like the army, you move your, way up in the ranks and stuff. But I think there are like, compared to when I first started, there were no type of programs. There are a lot more. We just, of course, need more of them and people to know how to, find those places.
Yeah. And I think that it's just about us creating ourselves, and we have these platforms, we have these voices, and we need to actually get out there and make ourselves heard and seen and known. I'd like to thank everybody for being a part of this. We're running out of time. I did not know. I knew it. I made the prediction in the beginning, but we were running out of time. So if you're listening, powers that be, there probably should be a part 2 to this. I'm just saying. I'm just sorry. I don't. So I'd like to thank you, Brick. Thank you, Onika. Thank you, Rico. Thank you, Abby. Thank you so much for sharing your voice and for the amazing things that you're doing in this community. I want to also tell everyone out there to go ahead and click the button that you see that says donate, because that's what makes these kind of things happen. This is how you can hear all of these beautiful, brilliant people speak about the changes that they're making in our community. So anywhere that you see that says donate on this page, not anywhere else, just wherever you are right now, you see a button that says donate, go ahead and click it and put money toward that button in whatever way you can possibly do that. I wanted to ask you all your social media handles so that people can find you. And that is how we will leave it. So Brick, go ahead.
Yeah, you can follow me on the Devil's Instagram at the Brick Jackson. And that's where you'll find me.
Oh my God. Jesus Lord. You can find me on Instagram as well. I've never heard of it called the Devil's Instagram. Jesus. My tag is @fearlessactress.
Great. And
Onika Day. You could IMDb, IG.
Throwing in that IMDb also, Abby Ebenezer. On the Book of Faces, Twitter, all the social medias at BabsEk79, BABSEK 79. Wicked.
And you can find me at Rico Ross with 2 C's on Rico and 2 S's on Ross.
Yes, just like Diana and just like you see. Thank you so much for being a part. This has been an amazing time with all of our technical issues. We persevere. We don't care. This is how we do it. So, thank you so much for Afro Comic Con for providing this platform. And we hope to see you again next time. My name is Mirage Trams. My handle is at Mirage Trams. Looks like Thrams. Mirage like the Vegas Hotel, THRAMS. And that's anywhere. You can just look me up. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Nice meeting everybody and talking to everybody. You guys are great.
Thank you.